Hi, my name is Avigail Klein-Bistritzky. I lost my husband coming up to 6 years ago. I have 5 children. My youngest at the time turned 1 during the week of mourning, during the Shiva week. It was actually day 3. It's funny the things that you remember. Almost 6 years down the line. I was 29 when my husband got diagnosed, and I lost him 18 months later at the age of 31. He was 34. And I think I can safely say 6 years down the line, grief is something that never leaves you. It's a gaping hole. Life just gets into that hole for good, as in for good reason. It's a good thing that there's so much going on in life, and there's things that need to get done, and kids need to grow up, and kids need to have a childhood. So I think looking back the last 6 years almost, I kind of had to make choices. For me, it was about making choices very early on. I remember when my husband got sick. I remember before leaving the room after he got diagnosed, and I hadn't even spoken to my husband yet. This was just a decision that I felt I had to make there and then, was you have to do this. You cannot crumble. You've got to do this. You've just been given the biggest blow of your life, and you don't really have like a waiting period. Let's see how it goes. We'll figure it out along the way. It was like kind of a do or die moment for me. Just grab the bull by the horns and don't let go. And I remember I made that decision as I opened that door after he got diagnosed, going into another door to get a set of blood tests for him, the first of many. And I wasn't the same person walking into that appointment, walking out. I set the bar very high for myself. And then I remember coming home and I said to my husband, this house isn't turning into a cancer house. We have children of the ages of 10, 5, 3, and I was just pregnant with my 5th. And I said, life has to just go on as normal. I just wanted everything to stay as normal as possible. I was determined, and I had his backing. Obviously, I had no idea what that meant at that point for myself. No one did, but it was the approach that we wanted to take, which was, we're going to do this, and we're going to smash it, and we hope for the best, even amongst a very grim prognosis. But we both are big believers in God, and we knew that anything was possible and anything can change at any given time. And so in a way, I would say grief started for me personally when my husband got diagnosed, because I felt I was on a different journey than he was. He was going down one path, I was going down another, and I very much felt I didn't want to burden him with my worries and my fears and my concerns, because he had so much to deal with himself, that I almost felt it was unfair of me to go and burden him with my fears and my what ifs. So we kind of took our own paths without actually even speaking about it. It kind of just happened. Obviously, we stayed as tight as ever as a couple. And, I was his number 1 fan and rallying for him and doing anything and everything possible for him. But internally, I felt our whole relationship, our whole everything had changed. And in a way, I thank God for that, because I had 18 months when he got diagnosed, it was straight into palliative care. So as a, religious Orthodox woman, when you hear the word palliative, you almost don't want to hear the word palliative. It's not something that we aspire to. It's obviously, a term that's given and is followed by, but I was hoping that it wouldn't be palliative. We kind of never even mentioned that word because we were going to fight till the end, and it wasn't palliative. It was just, we were fighting as if it wasn't palliative, that it was going to be a good ending. So in a way, for me, I would say grief started on the day of diagnosis. And then 18 months later, having passed away, grief just changed into a different dimension. It was a real loss. Something had gone and is never coming back. But prior to that 18 months, there was a loss already on the day of diagnosis. There was a loss of so many things that just came through my mind. Will he be at milestones? Will we make it to our 12th anniversary? Will we make it to this? Will we make it to that? Will he see the kids grow up? Won't he see the kids grow up? Will we marry off children together? All of those things were already very much being processed at the time of diagnosis, and as time went on and things didn't get so much better, that became all more real for me. So I would say grief has so many different aspects to it, and it comes up differently in different stages of life. And it's a constant loss no matter what, and a constant feeling that how could I have been so connected to a person, had 5 children with this person, and yet he's just not here to see and witness all the things that we made together, and the prior memories and all the memories leading up to the point of diagnosis. And then that just somehow is just washed away. But at the same time, we were both determined when we faced the diagnosis that the children, it's all about the children. And I was definitely determined even more so. I was like, we're just going to make it even better than it already is. That was my determination from diagnosis. And then when he passed away, I was even more determined to just do it even bigger and better. I think it's, part guilt that your children now have one parent, and part a real push and a real want that your children should feel no lack of anything. I kind of wanted them to feel that they still had a mother and a father. I remember COVID hit not long after he passed, about a year after, if I'm not mistaken, a year and a bit. And for me, actually, it was a godsend. I just got to be in a real bubble with my kids and really bond with them and have that time with them that I sort of almost lost. The 18 months were very dramatic, highs and lows and everything in between. And I managed to have that time with them from morning till night, and especially weekends. Friday nights, it was so beautiful. And I really felt, and I remember taking a look up to the skies before I lit candles, and I said, please, Hashem, please just let the kids feel that they have a mother and a father at the table, that it shouldn't be strange when mommy makes kiddush, and it shouldn't be strange when mommy sings, that everything should just feel normal, as abnormal as the situation was. And I think I did it. Everything did kind of feel natural. Making kiddush, making havdalah, making hamaitzi on the bread. I remember, though, having my moments thinking, what am I doing? What is going on here? I'm just looking at my husband on the buffet next to my candelabra on pictures, and I'm looking at him, and I was hoping he wasn't having a laugh at me. But it did feel utterly strange, and I remember thinking, I have to just put myself in all these awkward situations and uncomfortable circumstances, because it is, and I can either go with being uncomfortable and make it uncomfortable, or I just make the uncomfortable look comfortable. And I knew that God knew how I wanted to run and how I wanted to run my home, and I knew my husband knew my determination, and I felt I got an extra hug at those moments to make things as normal as possible, and to make the kids feel that Daddy's so around. Yeah, he's not around, but Mommy's just making it feel wonderfully the same. And I really think my children, I owe it to my children. They definitely are my raison d'être. I had and have a reason to get up for every single day. And it's that determination it's that same determination when we were in the doctor's office and receiving the diagnosis. It's that same determination that comes up over and over again at different points and different stages where, you feel like you just can't do it, but then you remember, but I have to do it, but I want to do it, but I must do it. My children lost a father. They're not going to lose a mum as well in this. I won't be able to have that guilt, deal with that guilt, knowing that they lost a dad, and their mum just lost it along the way. I was very, very fortunate to have a phenomenal family infrastructure of support, truly, on both sides, on my husband's side, on my side. An incredible set of grandparents on either side, sisters-in-law, cousins. I was really, 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 really buffered in by wonderful people that definitely made the journey easier. But, grief is in your face all the time. I mean, you go to places alone, you're just reminded of it so often in so many social settings, and it's like almost it's so unnatural, yet you've got to make it look so natural. And it's it's that parallel universe feeling all the time. That's why I remembered I've currently remarried and relocated to New York, but I remember that constant, it was so unnatural. Everything was so unnatural and parallel universe, and there was no one that you could really open up to. Well, you can, and you have good friends, which I certainly have, and they got me through as well a very difficult time. I forgot to mention that. Very exceptional friends. But at the end of the day, I would never want them to understand what I'm going through, what I went through, what one goes through when you lose a spouse, and what it does to a family. All hopes, dreams, milestones are just shattered and crushed, and no one can understand that. They can understand the idea of it, but they can't really understand and internalize what it means because they haven't gone through it. And that was something that I found very interesting, like a constant tug of war. I'm in the same universe as all my friends and my family, yet no one can understand what I'm really, really going through. What goes on at night when you close that door and it's just you, and you're so young. I felt so young. I was young. I was 29 when he was diagnosed and 31 when he passed away, and it did really feel premature. Like, I know it was, but it really felt it. It felt like we were just coming out as a couple, and my husband was doing well in work, and all of a sudden the book was closed. It was really harsh. But we never questioned. I was lucky to have a husband who truly and utterly believed with such love and faith that whatever happens is for the good. And he was so accepting of his plight, and he suffered tremendously. But he really paved the way for me going forward. I think I realized that more towards the end. He was so crystal clear and so hoping that there would be a miracle, but at the same time very realistic and not in denial at all. And I just kind of, I really went with him on that, wanted to go on with the same oomph and the same belief and the same passion. And I owe it to him, because in a way he was still training me till the end. Well, he was training me actually. I remember one day he called me and he said, I need to tell you how to do all the banking. I said, you know me, it's going to go through one and go out straight the other, but I'll do it. I'll sit with you and, talk me through it. And we sat together for 2 hours and he wrote everything down in his orderly fashion. He was so organized. It was also comforting. We both weren't scared of death at all. It was something that was spoken about when we needed to speak about it. It wasn't often, but we were both very, very realistic. My husband actually wrote letters prior to his death. He wrote it a couple of months before, and he wrote what time the Shiva hours should be, the morning hours, and the prayers in that day, morning, afternoon, evening. He was very into times of prayer. And it was so comforting. It was obviously in a certain file. He said, if I pass away, open up that file and it will tell you instructions. So it was almost someone giving you a handbook. Obviously there was no handbook for life, but I got a letter and his parents got a letter. And I still look at that letter today, 6 years later. I don't check it all the time. I go back to it from time to time, and every time I read it, I see something else. I take something else out of that letter that I can apply for where I'm at up to now in life. He almost made death. He did. He made death an absolutely beautiful experience, and made it so clear that when our time is up, our time is up, and the soul remains. The body gets buried, but he said to me, you're not burying me, you're just replanting me for when the time comes. So I'll be fruitful and looking good again. And the neshama is very much alive. And I was determined to, every picture stayed up in the house, and Daddy was very much, everything was Daddy in the house. Put it next to Daddy's bed, put it next to Daddy's chair in the office. I kept his memory very much alive. I wanted my children, especially I had 3 under the age of 5, to feel like that they knew exactly who their father was, because he was just so alive and present in the house when he physically wasn't there. But I think looking back and now being remarried, I married somebody who lost his wife. And I see it's a very personal journey. Grief it's so personal, and shouldn't be universalized in any way, if that's a word, universalized. It shouldn't be, there's no one avenue for grief. It's not possible. Every person deals with everything differently. Why? How can there be one way of dealing with grief? And I think there are times where it feels heavier than others. It feels more alive, even though for me it's been 6 years, but I have my moments where I'm just taken back to a time in my life, or a place that we were at, or even a smell. I have been at places and I'm like, whoa, that's nostalgic. That takes me back to that time. I have all my children. I look at my children and each one is just my husband in a different way. I have one son who's completely printing out tables, football table scores. I mean, he didn't even know his father, and his father had that same brain, very organized, and loved tables and formulas. And that is just the biggest comfort. That comforts me. That's like one big hug on my soul. And I embrace that, and I want to feel that feeling. And it never gets old. So my wish to whoever is going through grief, whether it's fresh, whether it's not so fresh, whether it's 20 years down the line, I hope you feel grief with grace and allow yourself to feel it, to know it, to be comfortable with it. And one thing I'm so grateful for is memories, because that's something that you take with you your whole life. And it's just etched in your heart. It's yours. And no one can take it away from you. No one can take that away from you. Yes, big things have been taken away from us. But memories, and I'm so grateful that I have that, because I say, at least I look back, and that enables me to look forward. So my parting words are: feel grief with grace. Allow yourself to be human with the experience. It doesn't get more human than death. And just, a lot of strength. Thank you.